SEMI China. He is in charge of the overall operations of SEMI programs, committees, product, including Semiconductor China events, which attracted 91,000 people this year. Long is an industry writer, so he has 30 years experience in industry. So you see everybody has a lot of experience, like I just mentioned. So prior to SEMI, Long served as the regional president of GOC Cadence Sigma. He has been based in Shanghai for 15 years. Prior to that, he has experience in Silicon Valley. He worked as a senior manager position. Lastly, but not leastly, you probably know that Long has been CASPA chairman for the year 2002 and 2003. And he's still the chairman of CASPA chapters in China and Taiwan. So he's a truly old friend of CASPA, and he has a passion to serve the community. Let's welcome Long for the presentation.
Thank you. Hi. Okay. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, it's really a pleasure to be here. As Connie mentioned, I'm passionate about the industry. I'm passionate about CASPA. I'm passionate about SEMI. Now I'm also very passionate about China. So it's really like coming home, back to this CASPA event. So I want to first congratulate France in winning the World Cup. We have some I don't know whether anyone from France in the audience. Okay, so as Ajay just mentioned, this is very exciting times, and we have a panel, a lineup of excellent speakers for the rest of the afternoon. So what I'm going to try to do, I don't think I should stand in front of the screen. I will stand here. What I will try to do is really to set the stage by first looking at the big picture of what's happening today in the world of semiconductor. Okay, so I will talk about the 2017, 2018, and looking forward a couple of years down the road, and talk about what is driving this wave of growth or the wave of innovation, or what are the key drivers. Okay, and then we want to talk about that's the consumption demand side. Then I will talk about the supply side. All the investment going into the fabs, the capex, where that money is going, why. Then I'm going to talk about China, or I should say, I'm going to talk about global industry, but I want to highlight China in the context of the global industry. Where does China fit? The 3 Ws. I will briefly talk about that. I've been talking about these 3 Ws in other events. I can talk for one hour, but today I will just briefly mention the 3 W, the why, the what, and the where. Okay. Then I will just briefly talk about SEMI, especially SEMI China, and our emphasis now in facilitating or in collaborating or connecting, collaborating, and then promoting innovation, especially in the China IC industry. Okay, so that's going to be my talk today. I will not cover the technology in detail, so I will set the stage for the rest of the speakers here. Okay? Okay, so we all know that last year was exciting times for the industry, reaching $423 billion with a 23% growth. So now let's take a closer look at where this growth is coming from. This is interesting, very interesting chart, the top 10 of the semiconductor companies in 2017. There's some key points that I have to highlight. Number one, you see who is the number one company in the ranking. Intel has been number one since 1995. And last year, it was surpassed by Samsung with a 48% growth. That's the first message, right? So, well, we're here at Intel. I'm not trying to say anything wrong about Intel, but that's what's happening. Okay. Second thing is, you'll notice the company with the highest growth, right? You count Samsung, and there's Micron, right? There's Hynix, also there's Toshiba. What do? What's their main product? Memories, right? DRAMs and NAND, right? So the growth of last year, you can say, it's a big part of the growth coming from semiconductor. Okay. Another company that has shown significant growth on this chart, which company is that? Nvidia, right? 44% according to this statistics, and that's AI. That's their GPU with application in all the deep learning and all these infrastructure, especially in the data center, in the cloud, right? So this is very, very significant, right? And this, you can see the trend in the future. There's another point I want to point out. You see which one is the number 3 company? TSMC, right? TSMC, right? With a 9% growth. So if you look at this growth in last year, okay, the overall is 23% with a big growth. Memory itself grew about 64%. And logic grew about 9%, which is consistent with what TSMC growth is. Okay, so we'll take a closer look later, but I think this is kind of setting the stage for us. All right, so that's 2017. What about this year? Very interestingly, in the beginning of the year, people were optimistic. They know the growth will continue because of the new wave of innovations, a multitude of different applications. And around this time of the year, this is the latest report from Semicon West. This from last week, so this is fresh. This is a brand new data. All the forecast has been upward modified. So everybody is becoming very optimistic about double-digit growth, not just single-digit, right? So, for example, Gartner saying 14%, ICE also saying 14%. Okay. So this is quite interesting, right? Quite interesting. All right. Why are people getting more optimistic? These are some of the latest, trend. Latest year to date. Okay. In Q1, the revenue grew by 20%. Right. So people are forecasting 14% for the year. Foundry is 9%, as I mentioned. This is pretty consistent. I think that's a sustainable growth. DRAM, okay, the growth is still quite significant, which is attributed mostly to the price increase. So DRAM price is still increasing. This is a very interesting phenomenon. If you notice the memory industry, the price up and down, the revenues, the cyclical nature seems to be smoothing out, at least for now. I will show more chart later. And the wafer shipment is grew about 8%, right, which is very consistent with this larger growth, right? And then equipment, okay, this ties to what I will talk about later, about the fab investment, about the CapEx. Okay, it's a record. This growth of 28%, reaching 16.7 billion, is a record for the equipment industry. Okay. However, these are all the good news, right? These are the good news. But this industry, as we all know, if you've been around as long as I have been, or other people in the room, the industry is always cyclical. There's always things are happening that we cannot predict. Uncertainties, right? The first one, this is coming from my equipment friend saying, hey, we're seeing a little kind of slowdown or the weakness or push out by some of the leading memory companies, Okay. I don't want to name, but that's the biggest memory company in the world. They're saying we may not see the demand as strong as our capacity can support. So it's a little bit of slowdown. Okay. Secondly, this is a it's in the headline almost every day. This tension between China and U.S. starting with a trade war, and now the concerns about this FIRRMA. I don't know if you know anything about it. It's related to CFIUS, which is the Committee for Foreign Investment in U.S. So the U.S. government is doing some review of the foreign investment, especially with respect to China, and even possibility. Hopefully, it will not happen. The export control. What would that do to the industry? I won't go into detail on this, but I just want to point out there's some uncertainties, but that's what makes the industry interesting as well. And these are the things that we really cannot control. All right, so what about next year? What about next year? The current forecast still shows growth, although it's kind of conservative growth. Okay, but even with this kind of growth, people are forecasting in 2019 the revenue will reach 500 billion. But Jill was talking about $500 billion, which is 500 billion, right? Which is 500 billion. If you remember that, I showed a chart from 200 to 300 billion took 13 years. From 300 to 400 billion, it took 4 years. And then from 400 to 500 billion, if this happens, it will take only 2 years. So this means the industry is still, accelerating. It's not slowing down. Okay, which is good news for people in this industry. And this is also quite interesting. This is from Gartner. See the purple is the logic, which shows steady growth. Memory, okay, will continue to grow until maybe next year, but then maybe it will come down. This is people's consensus. And we'll see. Okay, and then the rest of it, I think, will continue to grow. This is more and more like the MEMS, the power devices, the compound semiconductors. Okay, and that's going to drive a lot of these growth as well. So we'll see. But I'm very, very optimistic. Okay, so now, what's driving this? We know it's memory for the last couple of years and this year, right? Going forward, right? Let's take a quick step, back in the history of the 50 years of the industry. It's mostly a killer application, one or two, driving the industry for the last few waves. And then we noticed, maybe starting in the early, of this decade, maybe 2014, 15, the growth is now, enabled, propelled by a wave of new innovation, especially AI, enabling these new smart applications. We all know this, IoT, smart manufacturing, smart transportation, VR and AR. All of this, right, is bringing new demand for the IC industry. And one phenomenon is that this is really data-driven. We're generating a huge amount of data. Since we're talking about semiconductors, so my focus will be on IC demand. What is driving the IC demand, right? So when you talk a little bit about, if you look at the on the right-hand side, right, some of these areas that will help the industry sustain long-term growth: IoT, automotive, 5G, AR, VR, and AI. In my view, I believe the two things up there, the AI and 5G, are enabling technology to make everything else happen. In the next decade, it's going to see tremendous change to the whole industry. So we'll talk a little bit about the AI today. I think we're focusing more on that. Okay, let's first look at investment. Okay, this is the investment in the area of AI. this includes not just semiconductor, okay, everything else, everything else. So you see, this is from I think from Goldman Sachs. The investor community are very bullish about AI. So it is real. It is real. And they're putting big money into it. Okay. Looking at the AI value chain in the context, especially in terms of semiconductor, right? All the way from the basic process technology and the CPU, the GPU, the Intel, the Nvidia, the AMDs. And now we have a wave of new accelerators and ASICs. And today I think we have speakers from one of the companies over there. And then the big internet companies, they are moving into this area as well. This is, I'm talking about semiconductor, right? They're also investing heavily into IC. Okay, and then of course, once these data generate for these multitude of applications, it's becoming very fragmented and industry specific. So these ASICs or accelerators are trying to address the specific needs while competing or combating with the with the big guys, you know, in terms of general purpose processor. All right, let's look at this money flow, right? Because it's a good indication of where the industry is going to go. On the top, it shows the startup investment over the last. This will probably last 5 years. Actually, it should say probably 3 years, but most of that happened in the last 3 years. You'll notice, very interestingly, China. In China, the investment in the new AI IC startup, you know, is more than in the U.S. I think one reason is that maybe the valuation in China is higher. People in China are willing to pay higher premium for these startups. However, it is more than what's being invested in U.S. So that means the rest of the world is only 200 million, right? So you can see the trend. You know, China now is putting a lot of emphasis into AI. However, if you look down on the bottom, you see these giants, right? Okay, these Goliaths, you know, these big guys, they're investing billions of dollars into this technology. And this is all semiconductor related, right? It's not just their overall investment. Okay. One example of AI driving the IC demand, okay, which will keep the industry growing, is data center, right? Data center. You notice this chart, very interesting, okay? It is saying the BOM, you know, bill of material cost going into the AI server today, I mean the data center server today, versus in the past, there's a, you know, maybe 10 order magnitude larger, right? Because of the demand for high performance computing, for memory, both DRAM and NAND, also for the connectivities, also the hard disk, right? For example, Facebook will invest about $14 billion this year into the infrastructure, which is a data center, okay, versus 6.7 last year. So they're doubling the investment. They need more servers, right? They're building bigger servers. They're buying more. I mean, this drives more IC demand. And China's BAT, you know, the Baidu, the Alibaba, the Tencent, they're also doing the same thing. They're catching up. So far, the investment has not been as much as the Amazon, the Microsoft, the Google, and Facebook. But this is a very big driver for the semiconductor. And this shows the infrastructure investment of these big internet companies. This is a combined value. This year will be 55 billion. Facebook is 40, Amazon, everything added up together. All right, China, okay. This is the busy chart. I just want to show that, not into detail, but I want to show the Baidu, the Alibaba, and Tencent. They have a strategy on AI. what they plan to do. They have research people in different areas, and they're also investing and also directly, okay, into IC development. The iFly Tech is Keda Junfei. Okay, they're a company that now famous for the voice recognition. Okay, they're very. You can talk to your cell phone and then it will spell out the characters very quickly. So this is a big deal. Okay, big deal for BAT guys in China. For example, Baidu. Let me just take one example. Just last week in Semicon West, Baidu also participated in a smart transportation pavilion. It was a small present, but they showed their Apollo 3.0, which is an open operating system to enable the autonomous driving. I was at CES in Shanghai last month. They also have a big booth. It's very exciting. There's a lot of new stuff going on there, and Baidu is trying to capture this very fragmented, right now it's a very fragmented industry under their platform. They also are doing chips. This is just what they announced just I think 2 weeks ago. A chip that they probably contract out to somebody, but this is their chip with their logo on it, specifically for their needs in AI. And if you look on the right, these startups they have been investing. Okay, some of them are chip companies, some are software, some are system companies. All right, Alibaba, the Aliyun, you all know, right? They are investing very heavily, trying to use that to become the platform for the different industry, in addition to the Taobao, in addition to just being a shopping portal. So they're trying to become more and more enterprise-driven, enterprise-focused. Okay, and AI is also a big effort. IoT is also a big effort for Alibaba. This is what they have announced. Some of these investments. We collected some and picked some which are more related to semiconductor. You'll notice they even invest in Barefoot Network, which is based here in Silicon Valley. Cambricon, this is Hanwuji, this is a very hot company in China. In Beijing, C-Sky, which is from Hangzhou, they have the IP core for CPU, IP core. And the other company, D5, is also an IC company doing AI ASICs. Okay. So they're making a big However, I just want to also point out, right? We talk everything about AI, right, which is enabling this industry growth. One thing is that all this data being generated, right? This is tremendous, right? This data-driven. We talk about this data-driven era, right? But without AI, these data are just sitting there. It cannot be fully analyzed, cannot be fully utilized to generate the intelligence required, right, to make the AI application, the smart application happen. So just imagine, the 1 petabyte, how many zeros are behind the one for 1 petabyte? Anyone knows? 1 petabyte is one. How many zeros? 12?
15.
So there's but this is all now being enabled by semiconductors. So that's my key point. Right? That's my key point. Okay. We are seeing the application driving the semiconductor industry demand, but semiconductor is enabling these new applications. This just shows that although Moore's law is slowing down, but it's still moving ahead. I think the research on 3 nanometer has already started, and some leading foundries they are already having some test results for 5 nanometers. Right? In terms of NAND, 64 is fully mature. Now 96 is coming out. But they're saying this will reach a point of saturation. Right? The return on investment on the more layers will probably be diminished, because the more complex you get, the more costly it gets. And then memory after 1Z, who knows what's going to be the next generation. But there are a lot of new emerging memories now being discussed and being developed in the lab. Okay, so still everything will be enabled by IC. Good, that's the good news. Okay, now I talked mostly about the consumption now on the supply side. On the supply side, so people are obviously very optimistic. They are very bullish about the future. So they invest, they put money in it, and the biggest money is in the fab, in building the fab, billions of dollars investment. Okay, so the fab instruction and also the equipment spending has been going up significantly in the last 2 years. This shows the history of the equipment industry and the material industry, right? So after the year 2000, only this year we exceeded that peak, and we are seeing growth in the next few years. All right, this shows the equipment spending in the last few years and going forward. So Samsung has been the major contributor last year and this year. They're spending 25 billion and 26 billion, this year and next year. I mean, last year and this year. However, the growth in China, spending in China is also growing. Now, with the current forecast, China could be the number 1 or the number 2 spender of CapEx in 2019. And where are the money going to? Very obviously going to memory and foundry, the NAND, the DRAM, and the foundry investment. I won't go into details, but some of these are in China. Okay, some of these are in China. All right, so that's a very quick look on the fab investment, CapEx. Now let me turn the attention to China. So we'll talk about the 3W, why. This shows why they are investing, why they want to develop IC. There's a tremendous demand, okay? However, most of that demand is met by the imports, right? 50% of global consumption is in China, and the deficit, the import versus the export is about 160 billion. So that's a very tremendous amount. So from the economic security or from the national development standpoint, this is why the IC industry is not developing in China. All right, so you probably all have seen this or heard this, right? The government issued this National Guideline for IC Development in 2014, identified 4 areas for investment and development in design, in manufacturing, packaging, test, and equipment material. I will quickly go through these 4 areas. First of all, let me just kind of point out, I'm sure most of you have been to China, right? Most of these investments are in these 4 areas. In the eastern part of China, northern part of China, the southern part of China, and the western part of China. So it's everywhere, right? Now, we in the semi office in China, almost daily or weekly, a lot of local government calling and say, hey, we want to have semiconductor industry in my city. Tell me what we should do. They want us to go there and do planning for them. They want us to help attract some investment of semiconductor. So this is tremendous. I'm sure some of you have been exposed to this as well. Okay. All right. In terms of design, although there are 2 companies in the top 10 of the global ranking, and there are many, many new companies being started. This is a number from 2016. In 2017, this number probably reached 1,600. Okay. It's a large number, right? It's a very, very large number. However, most of these companies are very, very small. Some are even under 10 people, 20 people, and not very well funded, and focusing mostly on some of these low-end consumer products. So the message is that the key technology is still lacking. Right? Of course, we saw many AI companies, right? AI chips. They have people coming back to China from overseas, right? They have some advanced technology, but a lot of these 1600s you know, right? In a few years, some of them may get consolidated, right? But this shows the fever in IC design. Manufacturing. Currently, China accounts for about 15% of the global capacity. Okay. And most of that is in a mature node, except for the multinationals, right? And even you see many of the 200 millimeter, the 8-inch fabs capacity is now actually moving to China. Although Japan is more, but it's quickly, or gradually moving to China. So this includes both the local companies and the multinationals. I will show you the breakdown later. So not surprisingly, many new fabs are being started right now in China. They're in different stage of some in planning stage, some in the construction, some are moving equipment, some are in pilot, ramping up. But there are a lot of projects going on. Again, it's all over the map. Right? If you go to China, to every region, there's a lot of new fab being built. Okay, this is very interesting, right? People say, oh wow, there's a lot of new fab being built in China, right? Okay, this shows the capacity. I have another chart showing the new investment, but this gives you indication, right? This gives you indication the multinational companies, they are responsible for a lot of the capacities in China. And probably 80% of the advanced technology, like the 16-inch fab for TSMC in Nanjing, the GlobalFoundries is for mature technology, and then the Samsung in Xi'an, the Hynix in Wuxi, and also Intel, right? We're here at Intel in Dali. These are all advanced fabs. So I think my point is that China, the Chinese companies, in terms of manufacturing, their technology is at least 2 to 3 generations behind the global leading companies right now. All right, packaging and test. This is the third area, right? In this area, China is not doing so bad. There are 3 companies in the top 10. Okay, JSAT, TFME, and Huatian. Okay, they're doing well. Technology-wise, they're not so far behind. Although they're still lagging behind ASE and the EMCO in the leading edge. However, this gap is narrowing. Well, it's interesting to know that although EMCO is the only company based in the US, but their facility is also mostly in Asia Pacific, right? So you can see in the US, the packaging and test are not in the US. And the way how they do the so-called import and export is the final assembly. Once the final assembly is done, if it's shipped, the Qualcomm chip being assembled by ASE in Taiwan and then shipped to US or from China, is counted as import to US. However, the US company controls the product. More than 50% of the global product is controlled by US companies. But it's not showing in the statistics. So this is the growth of the 3 sectors I've talked about. The reason I don't have equipment material is that it's really insignificant. It's very negligible, right? And in China, it's interesting the way the CSI, how they show the industry growth. They combine the 3 sectors together. So that's why they show $80 billion last year as a combined revenue for design, manufacturing, and packaging and test. So different from what we see on the previous charts. All right, so this chart kind of summarizes the current status of the China IC industry, okay, in the 4 areas relatively to the global leaders. The vertical axis is the technology gap between China and the global leaders. I put memory also there as well, right? Because there's a big effort to do memory. The gap is also quite big. It's also quite big, right? So this is the current status. I'm running a little behind. Okay. So what's ahead? I just want to quickly say, it's already the largest market, and all these new stuff that we talk about are driving new applications. So basically, what it's saying that is the application, the demand, the consumption is actually in China, right? So China will play a very important role, okay, in the future, in shaping the future of the industry. In my view, I think this is what's a typical scenario, right? Before it was low-cost manufacturing, China was just trying to use the cheap labor or the low manufacturing cost. And now because more application is in China, so they have solutions coming, followed by innovation. I think that's the trend. And innovation is really essential in sustaining the future growth. I will skip this. So just one example of the new applications. This shows the NEV, the new energy vehicle, including the hybrid or pure electric. This number, China, under the support and incentive from the government, I think right now the consumption for the new NEVs in China is number one. This year, what I saw was around 1 million. I think US, I don't know what's the number, probably half of that. Probably half of that. And also what's interesting, I won't go through detail, right? If you look at some of the charts there are a lot of, these are the road tests, right? But let me go to this. A lot of new car companies, being formed in the last few years in China. And these are companies, the OEM company, they want to build cars, right? They want to build new cars, new electrical vehicles or connected vehicles, right? And everything, this ecosystem now is booming. It's booming. It's really tremendous. All right, I will probably skip Semi. You all know we've been around for 48 years, and we do great jobs. We are connecting the global supply chain, okay? And these are, besides the equipment material, the everything manufacturing, these are the new applications that we're also driving, like Ajil was saying, right? Because this is what's driving the industry. Okay, in China, I position our mission as the partner in realizing China IC dream. And we have 3 people coming from China for this event. I just want to highlight 2 things. One is our Semicon China, one is our SIIP platform. Semicon China, if you were not there this year, welcome you to attend next year. It's now the largest event in the world. We had 91,000 people last year, this year. It's very exciting. And this SIIP, the Semi Innovation Investment Platform, we started this last year. This was the launch ceremony in Beijing, September of last year. So you see many, leading individuals in the IC industry out there, including the president of Big Fund, Mr. Ding Wenwu, and Ye Tianzhen, Chinese Academy of Science Director, and Professor Wei, also Beijing, the MIT and MST, also CSIA. So the goal really is to try to connect the industry talent with innovation technology, with the funding and advisory consulting, right? And I think one key thing is that this will be a platform for China to be more connected with the global industry, so that collaboration can happen, leading to more innovation. Because right now China seems to be viewed as a threat by many countries. And this is some of the people who are sponsoring and participating in our platform, right? So I also encourage everybody in the room to join, because this is opportunity. We saw all the opportunities in China, right? To make it happen, innovation is the key. And this is what they're putting the focus on now, today's innovation. Innovation comes with people. I think people in this room, has got the talents to do that. So we're international. These countries, we especially want to connect with Silicon Valley. So just a quick summary. We already talked about this. Industry is growing. I call last year was a 旺年. It's a very good. This year is still good. So it's 旺年 versus 好年. All right. So it's driven by all these new applications enabled by AI and 5G. Fab investment is a record going to memory and foundries. And IC industry, the why, the what, the where. I want to promote the the global collaboration. I think this is what the industry has been the last few years, the last 30 years. I think globalization should be the thing. So this is our platform. We hope we can be of help to the industry, and I welcome you to join. So lastly, I just want to say SEMI stands for Free Trade, Open Market, and Innovation and IP Protection, and the common prosperity and growth of the whole industry. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.